Ladies and gentlemen, Mario van Niekerk and Marion van Niekerk. We hanging with you but again today. And today we're going to talk about grain storage silos, specifically on-farm storage of grain. Keep in mind, in South Africa we have the estimate, nobody knows exactly, the estimate varies between 1.5 and 2 million tons of grain storage capacity on farm in South Africa. So it means a lot of people had seen the wisdom of making that investment, and investments are made to save you money or to make you money. So what we're going to do today is to give you some compelling reasons why you should consider your own on-farm grain storage. Marion, you can start with giving us a few of those reasons.
So there's a bunch of reasons. We'll start off with the easiest one, and that would be transport. And transport costs in distance and transport cost in time. So imagine the difference between carting your grain from the field all the way to the central storage location, which could be a co-op or it could be a trading house or something, and reduce that to just taking the grain off the field to your farm yard, right? How many kilometers are you saving there? It's a lot of kilometers that you're going to be saving in transporting your grain. The second thing, transport time. A big frustration for all farmers when delivering to these central sites is waiting time. When you're ready to harvest, everybody's ready to harvest. And that means the co-op has long lines that you have to stand and wait in before you can offload your grain, before you can turn around, get your truck back to the field and start loading it again.
You know, apart from that, it is of course roads, condition of roads, the breakdowns, accidents on roads, and you're easily talking 60 kilometers two ways on with a tractor and trailer, or if you have a tipper trailer on the farm, you know, having to offload on the side of the land is not that easy either.
Yeah, and that doesn't even take into account, you probably don't have a weighbridge on your farm. You might overload some of the trucks. You might get pulled over and get fines on the road to the way to the co-op because you're overloaded as well. Second compelling reason to do that is you have control of your grain, where you are able to sell it when you want it and to whom you want to sell it to. You're not a slave to the transport differential anymore because you're able to sell to buyers who are closer to you, and you don't have to base your pricing off of delivering it to Randfontein.
You may have buyers in Durban, and you quoted a Randfontein price, and you're halfway to Durban as it is. So you can give your customer the benefit of a lower differential by him just loading right from the farmyard.
And then that will be on his transport cost, not on your transport cost if he collects directly from you on the farm. Another reason for on-farm storage is that reduced labor cost for example, drivers, assistants, people offloading the grain at the central silos, that you don't have to pay anymore. You coming in, you have 2 or 3 drivers maybe on the trucks, on the trailers, coming in, bringing your grain in, going back directly to the field. It also enables you to harvest whenever you want and for as long as you want. You don't have to stop harvesting at 5 o'clock in the afternoon because the co-op's closed and they're not taking in any grain anymore for the rest of the day. You can keep on harvesting and keep on delivering till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, till 2 o'clock in the morning if you really want to.
Apart from that, of course, is the cost. Intake cost into the central silos and storage costs over there. You're easily talking 150 rands a ton intake, and included in that, this is usually a 6-month storage period. So multiply that by the number of tons you take in. Of course, there may not be space in the silo that's closest to you. So you may have to run another 30 or 60 kilometers to a different silo.
Another benefit is the control that you have over your grain. You are able to actually dry your grain down to an acceptable level in your silos if you've harvested a little bit wet. You are able to clean your grain and retain those screenings. Remember, you have an automatic 2% deduction on your grain when going into the co-ops, and it's not like they give those screenings back to you. So you're able to clean your own grain, get those screenings which have commercial value, either as a stock feed to sell or as a feed to use on your own farm, and then to upgrade your grain by cleaning it as well to get a better grading. Another reason is gristing in the silos. So sometimes you may have some poorer fields that you've harvested and some better fields that you've harvested, and you don't necessarily want to sell grade 2 maize. I mean, have you ever seen the co-op selling grade 2 maize? It doesn't happen.
You can just do a better job of cleaning and of cleaning your own grain. And of course, drying is another aspect. If you do your own drying on the farm, you're able to harvest earlier, get a quicker turnaround, get your cash quicker into the bank, and avoid risks. So the drying is very important, especially for people in irrigation areas where they're eager to get the next crop going.
Then of course, remember this is a 30-40 year investment that you're making in this grain handling facility on your farm. The day when you do decide to sell your farm, this is an actual asset that people will pay money for on the farm. It makes the farm more effective, it makes the farm more attractive for buyers to have that facility available.
And you know, finally, we will present a link here where you can actually fill in your own estimated costs for the various aspects we talked about and others, and see exactly what your saving is can potentially be. The rule of thumb that we've seen from farmers that we put up silos for is there's a payback of between 3 and 5 years on a silo system. Now, I'll give you an idea. 2,000 ton silo complex would cost you around 2.7 million.
Yeah, around 3 million.
2.73 million, including civil works and the whole 9 yards, not including drying and any fancy things like that, but basic storage. Then we start making the calculation from that. You'll be surprised to see how much money you're actually able to save.
Yeah. Every time you get that bill at the end of the season that you have to pay the co-op, all of that money basically is going to be back in your pocket.
And don't be fooled by bonuses these people are saying they're paying you. It's a very smart way they're using to reduce their own tax liability. We can talk about that some more.
Yeah, so check in the link below to download our it's an Excel spreadsheet that calculates the savings that you can make in the next 5 years and keep on making for the next 40 years.
We've been talking about cost savings of erecting your own grain silos on farm. Now we want to put this in numbers and to clarify this and to show you how much you're potentially able to save. We're going to do some assumptions. You're going to fill that in yourself on the spreadsheet that you're able to download. And the first assumption is that you're harvesting 3,000 tons of grain per annum.
Then the second question is distance from the furthest field on your farm to the proposed silo location where you'd like to have the silos. So let's say that's 5 kilometers for argument's sake. Then we'd like to know what's the distance of your furthest field from the central storage facility. So what's the distance that you're traveling at the moment to your storage facility? Let's call it 30 kilometers. All right. Then what is your typical load size that you are transporting to and from the fields to the central co-op? There you have options. We got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Let's say you're doing it with a tractor and a trailer and you're bringing in 15 tons at a time, right? Next, we'd like to know the tractor or the truck that you're using to haul it in and out from the silos. What kind of horsepower is that using? That's just to calculate the diesel consumption. So let's say you're using a 90 horsepower tractor to do that load in between your farm and the silos, or a 90 horsepower truck, right? Then we'd like to know how many screenings were deducted from you last year in percentage points. So on average, it's usually around 2%, okay? Then this is one where we'd like to really do the average on you. What was the average price that you received for your grain last year? So that would be a mix of soya and maize, or soya or wheat or canola or whatever you are producing. Let's call that, this year was a good year, we call that 4,500 rands per ton. And then the average amount of days that you paid storage fees for last year. So how many days on average did you store your grain in that facility? I think 90 days is a pretty decent average of what most guys would be storing. A lot of it you're selling early, a lot of it you're selling later, but on average we can say 90 days in the silos.
The pattern in South Africa is normally that soybeans are sold early to cover production costs, and farmers hang on a bit more to maize.
Next question we'd like to know is, what was your rate for storage per ton per day? So we've got a 114 storage rate per day per ton that we pulled off of some of the co-op's website from the published storage rates. And then the handling cost per ton, we've got 76 Rand per ton. That as well was for the 2024 season that they were charging that approximately. Next question is your cost of diesel. How much do you pay per liter of diesel? 23 Rand 44. That's more or less where we're at now. And then the cost of your electrical power that you are paying. We're going to exclude the fixed cost here because the fixed cost is fixed and you do need the power on your farm anyway. So we say, I don't think 1 Rand 85 is really right. We probably go something like 2 Rand 65. And then the last question, we need to know what in your business is a realistic financing interest rate for a project like this, if you plan on financing the project entirely or partly in this. 15% we've got on here. I think 15% on a fixed asset financing is probably a realistic rate. All right, then if we finish the questionnaire, we go on to the results sheet. So we are saying we are handling 3,000 tons. The handling cost on 3,000 tons would be around 228,000 Rand. Storage cost would be 300,000 Rand. This is all coming from the calculation sheet. Transport cost, that would be 201,115 Rand. If we work on 15 Rand 47 per kilometer, this is calculated again off of the diesel consumption. Then 3 Rand 50 per kilometer, we base that on wear and tear, so that'll be repairs, services, maintenance, tires, stuff like that. And then the driver, we got at 30 Rand an hour for a driver moving the grain from the farm to the storage facility. Then we've got the screenage cost reduction, so that screenings deduction, we say you're going to be able to realize about 70% of your sales price on the screenings. All right. Then you've got all kinds of other costs. You've got silo certification costs, GSA levies, admin tariffs, and admin tariffs for delivery facilitation. All of these are added on. These are above and beyond your handling cost that just get added on at the end when you get your final invoice. So for processing grain through a central storage facility, on 3,000 tons, your cost is going to be about 863,000 Rand, or that comes to 287 Rand per ton handled. All right. Your operation cost on a silo, that's going to be electrical cost. We base that off of the electrical cost for a typical storage facility like this. Silo maintenance cost, which is going to be pretty minimal, especially in the first 20 years. Transport cost, that is based on moving the grain between the farm, the field and the farm, or the field and the silos, no longer going between the field and the central co-op. Then you've got transport cost, wear and tear, and on the same basis, just much lower kilometers, of course, and the driver wages, which are, of course, much lower because of less time that you're running. And then we look at the capital costs. So if you are producing 3,000 tons, probably a realistic kind of silo size for you would be in the region of 1,000 or 1,500 tons. So let's say it's a 1,000 ton silo complex, which will come to a capital cost of about 1.7 million rand. That's including electrical, including civil works, including everything. This is going to change. These are on 2024 prices, right? So if you're looking at this video in 10 years, please don't keep me to these prices. Then we've got your yearly repayment. You can add in there over how many years you're going to finance this. Typically, banks will finance this in anything between 5 and 10 years. We'll work on 10 years. And then you can put in what your loan deposit is for this project. We worked here on a very low 10% deposit, which is probably the minimum that the bank is going to require from this. So your total cost of ownership is going to be 420,000 Rand per year. Your total costs this year with the co-op was 860,000 Rand. Your total savings is 443,000 Rands per year, which makes the payback of 6.87 years, call it 7 years on this project. This doesn't take into account if you are taking in grain from farm, from your neighbors and running it through your silos as well, then the cost dramatically decreases based on income that you're able to receive from that.
Very, very few investments is going to be able to give you that kind of return. We're not talking about Mr. Liebenberg here.